All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are here with the faculty director of the MSBA program, Dominic Solito, and he's going to answer some really specific questions that we've gotten from our prospective students. So welcome, Dom.
Thank you for having me. And hello to everybody watching.
Excellent. So the first question I have from you is that sometimes we get questions about how the MSBA differs from the MSMIS program. So can you provide some insight on the differences?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because the MS Business Analytics program, uh, uh, as its own entity, really only started a couple of years ago. But it's important to understand that prior to the MS Business Analytics program being its own separate degree, right, it was actually a part of our MIS program as sort of like a concentration that students could take. What we found over time was that there are distinct differences in our MIS program and our business analytics program that kind of necessitated us to decouple them and make them separate pathways. And I can speak pretty well on this because I'm an MIS alumni myself. I graduated with a master's in MIS back before there was a business analytics program. So the real main difference that we identified was that the MIS program is really structured around building the next generation of IT professionals, technology driven professionals. That means if you want to get into cloud architecture, right? If you want to get into software development, if you want to get into product management on a digital side, then the MIS program is an excellent fit, right? There are data focused courses, there are things like that you'll take, but it's not going to be your primary focus. Your primary focus is going to be on how can organizations use technology in a more general sense to drive their businesses forward. Now, business analytics program is a little bit different, and it's different in that it is largely data focused. Data focused as a primary driver as opposed to sort of like a secondary elective. Like in the MIS program, you can take data driven courses, but they're largely electives to kind of pad out your IT knowledge. Whereas in the analytics program, data is everything, right? Everything that we do is structured around how can I be a business intelligence analyst? How can I be a data engineer? How can I build the next generation of generative AI tools? And how can I use that specifically to apply it to domains of business, marketing, finance, cybersecurity, healthcare, right? So in this way, obviously technology is a piece of it, but much like data is a secondary component of MIS, technology and IT is a secondary component of MSBA. So in this way, there's a really nice kind of cohesion between the two programs, but they are distinctly separate in that way. And so what I would tell a student or a prospective student who's trying to decide between the two of them, it's a simple equation, right? Do you want to be an IT professional that provides IT services and provides IT kind of knowledge and expertise and leadership to an organization? If so, then my ask is your fit. Do you want to be a domain focused data professional that provides solutions, uses data to drive decision making and things like that? Not just in IT, but in marketing or finance or healthcare or whatever it is, right? As sort of a function of that business unit. And if that sounds interesting to you, then the MSBA is really the program that is the right fit for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, focusing specifically on the MSBA program, a question that I get often from applicants is, do applicants need experience in certain programs or software? And kind of what are your thoughts around that? And can you also elaborate on what kinds of programs and software students can expect to learn and utilize while in the program?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I get it all the time from students that are currently in the program, whether they have years of experience or they're coming straight out of undergrad with no formal work experiences. What do I need to do to be successful? So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the different places that our students come from, right? We've got students from business undergrad and computer science undergraduate degrees, or who are coming back from data analyst and data engineering roles within industry. And they come in kind of with this baseline of knowledge that they bring with them. But Outside of that, right? We have students that are we've had a couple doctors, medical professionals that have come back to school. We've had folks from the School of Architecture. We have fine arts. We have electrical engineering and mathematics. We have history students and geography students that come in, all because they recognize that everything boils down to data, right? And if we can use data and understand how to use that data and how to format and how to derive intelligence and decision making out of it, then we can move forward. Now, what that means with that diverse of a background and portfolio, that means that we don't presuppose any specific knowledge on entry to the program from any of our students, right? During the admissions process, when it goes through the decision-making committees and things like that, we review things like your past experience in certain types of courseworks and things like that to make sure that you at least kind of have the mindset that can kind of succeed in the program and but not any specific experience, not any specific skills. So like if you're saying, hey, look, do I need Python skills before I come in? No, the answer is no. When you get to Python, we will teach you Python, right? And we will teach it from a perspective that understands that there are people that have Python experience and people that don't have Python experience. If you have SQL experience, great. If you don't, also great. You will learn, right? And we provide the resources to make sure that the folks that come in without those skill sets can accelerate very quickly and be on equal footing with the folks who do. But at the same time, that the folks who do have that experience can very quickly take that to the next level, right? And so if you're thinking, oh my gosh, what do I need to do as a boot camp? Do I need to do this certificate? Do I need to do that? The answer is no. It's great if you do. I mean, you can. If you're really excited about something and passionate, you want to take that course in machine learning, then do it, right? But you don't have to, because we come into the program and we prepare you for those things. Now, the tools that we actually teach you in the program, those are there's a ton of them, right? But predominantly, I'll break it down into two groups. The first group is going to be the group of tools that you'll learn in your core courses. So everybody will learn them. And then there's a series of more specialized tools that will really depend on the elective and domain pathway that you take through the program. So on the core side, what we do at the program level is an analysis of the job market, right? So every 6 months or so, give or take, I will pull a data set of about 20,000 minimum job postings in the data sector across the country. On top of that, I'll interview our former students and some of our industry partners to understand what are the top tools that you are looking for, the technology skill sets and things like that. We make sure that those are reflected in our core, right? Because if there's something that pops up in more than 90% of the job postings, like SQL, right, for databases, pops up more than 90% of the time, then it needs to be a core competency of you when you leave the program, and we will make sure that it's in there and it's worked into our curriculum. So things like SQL, right? Things like R or Python, depending on kind of your pathway through the program, are going to be very big. You'll learn data visualization platforms like Tableau, and you'll have an opportunity for Power BI and things like that, right? From a data engineering perspective, you could have the opportunity to learn something like SSIS, Azure Data Factory, or something like Talent, right? And so through your core courses, you'll get exposure to what are probably the top 5 to 10 tools. Again, the biggest ones that will pop up are going to obviously be, again, SQL, Python, Tableau, R, Power BI, right? But outside of that, there's this opportunity that you get to take electives, right? And take an applied domain course. And so, for example, you may say you want to be in healthcare. You want to be a healthcare data analyst. And so great. Do you know what we're going to give you? We're going to give you all of those core tool experiences, but then you're going to be engaging in experiential projects where we're working with healthcare data and electronic medical record systems. And so you'll gain that experience in those particular platforms and that data and its structure so that you understand deeply when you graduate these specific technologies that you're going to need to know in order to secure that job role and really excel in it. And so we'll go through things like that. So, I've already mentioned our basics, SQL, Python, R, Tableau, Power BI, but we'll dive even deeper into other things that are tangential to kind of that experience and exposure. So we'll get into our obviously super you're going to be the biggest world's foremost expert in Microsoft Excel by the end of it, as well, obviously, because everything boils down to spreadsheets at the end of the day, and how it is that we navigate those different database platforms, different cloud platforms. A number of our students, particularly who take my electives, will get experience in data warehousing platforms like Snowflake and Google BigQuery, right? And Amazon Redshift and Azure Synapse, and so there just kind of is this variety. And one of the things that we do, because that variety can be overwhelming, especially if you're coming in without the mindset of what you want to do when you graduate, is we have a whole team here, right? From myself to your other faculty to your academic advisement team in the graduate programs office. We meet with you and we say, hey, look at what interests you, what excites you. Let's try it. Did you like it? No? Okay, let's adjust and let's take different courses and let's take different projects. And overall, we kind of get you kind of try to get you on that trajectory that has you learning the core skills that you need. For example, most recently, we're spinning up this spring semester as part of our practicum a whole series of projects on developing applications in generative AI. And so our students are going to be learning how to build their own local large language model ecosystems and all of these different applications that kind of span operationalizing generative AI in businesses. And so we're really, really focused on giving students, the technology, not just that they crave, but that their future employers want them to have.
Excellent. Thank you so much for going into detail with that, because students are asking for those specific kinds of questions a lot. So I appreciate you diving into the kinds of software and the programs that we utilize in the program. Another question that we get is talking more about the certifications. So can you talk a little bit about what types of certifications students can get in this program?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to certifications, it's important to understand a couple of things, right? And I say this being a certification holder myself for the cybersecurity CISSP cert. So I want to kind of level set by explaining to folks as they're kind of thinking about certifications on the optimal way to think about them, right? The optimal way to think about a certification is as a standardized sort of indicator that you have a specific set of knowledge, right, on a specific topic, right? And the reason why I say that in that very, very, very direct way is that a lot of people look at certifications and they view them more like a deck of cards, right? And they say, as a student, what I must be doing is I must be getting as many certifications as I possibly can. And that is one perspective to have. It is not the perspective that I take. Why? Because most of the time, a certification is very valuable, the first one, and maybe even the second one that you get as a student. But then beyond that, I would rather you focus your time on actually engaging with the technologies and building projects and working with the companies that we work with and partner with as an institution, rather than studying for more multiple choice exams, right? And so I want to preface it with that, because I think certifications play a very, very important role. But what I want to say is that we help students to make the best choices on the most targeted and focused certifications that they can get as they kind of proceed through the program. Now, none of the coursework that they take is going to force them to take any specific certification or not. What it will do, however, depending on the pathways they take, is to help them prepare for those certifications, right? And so one of the most common certification pathways we see students going to is the Tableau Desktop Professional Certification route, right? We learn Tableau in our classes. Employers want to know Tableau, or want you to know Tableau or business intelligence tools, and therefore it's a natural fit for a lot of our students, right? And that one we find a large number of our students kind of seeking out. However, you may not be a student who's interested in that. You may not want a Tableau certification because you don't want to be on the data visualization or business intelligence side. Maybe you want to be on the data engineering side. So if you want to do that, then what we would do is we would recommend that you take specific coursework like data warehousing and data engineering with me. And in that class, the course content is a natural progression toward the Microsoft Azure DP 203 exam, which is data engineering in Microsoft Azure. And over the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of students take that very, very difficult exam, right, and pass it and get that certification that's really tailored toward their career aspirations. And so, we've got things from business intelligence to data engineering certifications. Some students will go and they'll focus specifically on more kind of cloud platforms. So they really want to work for a company that works with AWS. And so they'll go for the core AWS certification, and then they'll bolt on a data analytics one to it that has them working in some of the Amazon platforms like AWS Glue or Redshift or Athena, right? And so, what I would say to a student thinking about certifications is start thinking more about two things. One, what is it that excites you about data analytics, right? And two, what is your ideal job role? And then what we'll do is we'll work backwards from that and help to recommend you some pathways through coursework and certifications that will get you there. And so I know that's kind of a roundabout way of answering the question, but we could be here all afternoon listing all of the certifications that our students wind up seeking and achieving. And really, I rather than doing that, I'll list a few of them like I did, and then say, sky's the limit. We'll help you prepare. We've got a huge alumni network that our students tap into to ask for help as they're studying for certifications. We've got folks here in our faculty that have the certification students are seeking and are available to help. We've got coursework that is specifically designed to help seek the certifications. And so, all a student needs to do is communicate and say, I want to do this, or I want this certification, and we'll help you on that pathway.
Now, another option that they have is through some of those FlexCore options. So can you provide more detail on the MSBA FlexCore options and how it will prepare applicants for careers post-degree?
Yeah, FlexCore is interesting, and so there's an interesting thing about MSBA at UB versus other graduate programs or even other MS Business Analytics programs. And it's the variety of course pathways that a student can take to ultimately earn their degree. And that's largely driven by the fact that the MS Business Analytics program is heavily focused on getting students as targeted knowledge in a particular domain that they're interested in, so that they can leave the program and on day one go to a marketing agency and immediately start providing value because they understand in detail the business of marketing and the data application to that business. So when we talk about things like electives and your applied domain flex cores and then your standard flex cores, what really we're talking about is what pieces of that puzzle fit together to provide you with that view of your future career. So when we talk about the traditional core flex core, right, we're talking about three courses, right? Three course options. That is predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and what they refer to as model managerial process, which prospective students will come very soon to know as data modeling, right? And what we have is, so if you're a prospective student and you hear a current student talk about the data modeling course and you're not seeing that, it is the model managerial process. It's just a nuance of how the university's course naming system works. So when you have this opportunity, we go in and say, okay, pick two. But that's just the two you need to graduate. You can choose all three. One of them becomes one of your electives. And so when you're choosing and you say, hey, you know what I want to be? I want to be a data scientist, and I want to be building the next generation of generative AI algorithms and things like that. And I want to be building those tools and building those softwares. You know what that is? That's predictive analytics and machine learning. And so what I would recommend that you do in that case is for your flex core, you would take model managerial process and predictive analytics. You could take prescriptive analytics if you want, right, as an elective, but those two are the flex core that you'd want to take. Now, if you were to tell me you want to be an operations and supply chain optimization expert, right, and what you really want to do is work with data to optimize business processes, right? To do those sort of things internally, not necessarily predict the future or do any of that, right? But really just take what we have and enhance it and make it better, right? And find these opportunities. Then I would tell you to take prescriptive analytics and model managerial process, right? And so there are different pathways that will kind of have us recommend that you take one course or another course when it comes to flex core or even electives. Does that mean that if you don't take predictive analytics, you can't get a job in generative AI? Absolutely not, right? It's not your only opportunity to get that experience. But what it does mean is that if you know upfront what it is that you want to do, right? That we can make sure that you don't waste any time getting there. But if you don't know what you want to do, then it serves as a great way to explore and experience these different avenues. We have plenty of students who come in and don't know. They're like, I love data. I don't know how I want to apply that though. And so they take all three of the flex core and it helps them on their journey while covering off not only the core requirements, but the electives as well, right? We have students that come in and say, when we talk about the applied domains, we have students that come in and say, I don't know what I want to do. So you know what they do? They take healthcare analytics, and then they take digital marketing analytics, and they take cybersecurity analytics. And they go, I never thought I would love cybersecurity analytics, but here I am. And then they go for a job in that particular sector, all because they've had that opportunity to explore. And so when you're looking at these flex core options, these applied domain and these electives, right? What I really want prospective students to understand is that rather than being an overwhelming series of choices and confusing, view it more as an opportunity to either laser focus on what you know you want or to explore when you're less certain. And that is something we'll help you through.
Excellent. And to round out our final question, do you have any examples of projects that students have engaged or worked on? Because that's something that our prospective students love examples of what current students are doing.
Yeah. So one of the really cool things about our program, that is also often one of the most ambiguous ones to a student just looking from the outside, is probably going to be our practicum, right? Our MS practicum, this 1.5 credit core that everybody takes in the spring semester before they graduate. And that's all you get to know about it. Or so it seems, right? When you're just casually glancing through kind of the materials, and you're being overwhelmed by everything through the application process, and you're maybe looking at other institutions. But practicum is actually, in my opinion, the secret sauce of the degree program, because the practicum is this wild card, right? This open-ended question that every student gets to ask. And that question is whatever your mind thinks of to apply the skills you've learned through the program through the lens of some topic area, right? And so what is really, really cool is that students will take this in really one of two ways, right? The first way that they'll take it is they'll go in and they will come up with their own practicum ideas, right? They will come up with their own independent project where they will collect and seek out the data, and they will go in and build something, right? And we encourage people to not just go and say, well, I'm going to choose this marketing project I'm not really excited about, but I want to be in marketing someday. And even though it's boring, I'm going to do it because it'll look good on a resume. No, absolutely not, right? This is your passion project, because nothing will help you in your career more than doing something with the skills, building and learning and applying in something that you can passionately describe to an employer and discuss and show off and be really excited about it. And so we've had people do things like Dow index analysis and financial modeling around S&P 500, right? We had a group of students last year doing a whole port and commodity trans-border freight data analysis project to try and understand how freight ships and that whole supply chain could be optimized better. We had production planning optimization problems students were exploring. We had one student do a whole analysis on the history of data surrounding UFO sightings, right? And trying to identify kind of topical and psychological indicators that led to like these sightings and these reportings of UFOs. Really, really interesting. We had one student who was a competitive Pokemon player who the card game, right? The trading card game, and wanted to build a predictive model to help them better strategize in their actual competitive professional matches. And so built this, right? Motor vehicle data. We had agricultural and kind of social responsibility driven projects, credit risk analysis. All of these things are things that the students will work on, supported by me and the rest of the department, right? Those are the independent projects. Flip side, there's the other end of the coin, right? The other end of the coin are sponsored experiential projects, right? These are where we work with either a business unit internal to the university, right? Or we work with an external company to get the students access to real data, real problems, real outcomes. They have a real stakeholder that they are on the hook to deliver to, right? And they will provide that sort of value. And so last year, we had a number of students who became interested in cybersecurity analytics, and they developed a framework for what we refer to as adversarial machine learning. Basically, how do we protect the new generative AI platforms that every business is launching right now, using data-driven detection and analysis, right? We had another set of students that were looking at healthcare data to recommend enhancements to patient care to reduce the cost for patients and improve patient outcomes across a large population. Real patients, real data. We had obviously, when I say real patients, real data, I have to put the disclaimer that it's all sanitized data because there are federal regulations. And so we also learn how to navigate those regulations and how to make sure that we comply with privacy obligations and security obligations, right? We had one that was with our admissions team, you guys last year, right? A bunch of them actually that were around data-driven marketing personas and campaign forecasting strategies and dashboards. And we had another one that was an executive dashboard for building a data pipeline. So doing some data engineering, some extract, transform, load, or ETL for an external organization and helping them to build a better executive dashboard to drive decision making. This year, we've got more coming up that are about market demographic analysis for a broadcasting company is about the most I can get into depth on that, because a lot of these are real companies, and so there are certain nuances of what we can and can't talk about publicly about them. But it's a broadcasting company that's interested in learning more about their consumer behavior so they can drive better programming to those populations. We've got generative AI development, where we need people to work on developing small little applications to help process automation in different organizations. We've just got, I could keep going for hours and hours and hours about the variety of projects that our students engage with. And our goal is always, always, always to get the real data from the real organizations, whether it's independent or experiential, because at the end of the day, I want you to have a portfolio project that you can go into that interview and say, this is my GitHub page. This is my portfolio website. Go check it out. I'm really excited about it. And every year the students just blow me away with the outstanding outputs that they have. And they land jobs for it. Right. And some of the students have gotten jobs with the companies they've worked on the experiential projects with. The folks that worked with the admissions team, you guys last year, a couple of them actually shifted their whole careers and went into higher ed, and they work in higher ed now as in data focused roles. I mean, it's incredible what they can do with that. And so, I'd encourage any student looking at like, oh, what projects am I going to get? What experiences am I going to get in a 1.5-year program that doesn't have an internship? The answer is as many as you're willing to participate in, and in any area that you find interest and excitement in, we'll support it. That's what we're here for. And that's what helps our students land their dream career roles. And so we'll keep doing it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dom, for answering all of our really detailed questions.